it is my hope that by the end of this session, you will all understand the importance of common assessments and will be able to create effective common assessments with your colleagues that will advance student achievement. All right, let's start with the data. Data is very important whenever we're looking at a need for a school. So first of all, let's start with the needs assessment survey. Not too long ago, I gave a needs assessment survey here at Hueneme High School. And from 15 teachers that responded to this survey, 13 either voted with a 4 or a 5 for strongly agree or agree. And they agreed that Hueneme High School was in need of giving common assessments at the end of each unit. Many teachers from different subjects responded. It was not only math, we had some social studies in there. We had English in there amongst others. So now let's look at another different type of data that I did collect and I did take a look at. So the second type of data I did focus on, which teacher interviews. So I did meet up with teachers and I quote, "It would be nice if all of us gave the same test at the end of each unit." Another verbatim, "Everyone should have the same priorities when it comes to student learner objectives." And the one that I was very surprised were student interviews. More than student interviews, I myself had a student in Math 3 who came to me and she was like, you know, the other teacher already gave the test and is already on standard deviation, so when are we going to learn that? And to me, I was amazed. That just made me realize how awake our students are. The fact that they collaborate, they talk amongst themselves, they know what's going on in the math department. And of course, like the math department, I'm sure it happens with every different subject. So it's very important for student achievement and for just, you know, overall the teaching cycle to make sure that you're following a pacing guide. And not only a pacing guide, but common assessments will make a difference. So let's take a look. Why use common assessments in our subject departments? So according to Johnson, there's research that shows educators have powerful strategies that are available to us to actually improve student achievement. And this is the fact that we have so much expertise. I mean, we're teachers. It took us a while to get here. It wasn't from one day to another that we got our certificate. We've studied, we've taken classes. We know, we understand how students learn. Well, let's put all those brains together, create a test together that's going to benefit our students. But not only that, it's going to cut our work in half. Because truth is, as according to Johnson, there is no research that shows individual work from a teacher will make that much of a difference or a lot of difference as it would when teachers work together. So I'm not saying that teachers working on their own will not see the fruits of their labor, but they'll get that fruits of their labor even times to the power of 10, say, if they were to collaborate with other colleagues who again teach the same subject and the same level. All right, so let's take a look at the definition of common assessment. So formative assessment by definition is created collaboratively between teachers who teach the same subject. So note, even its definition, it's an assessment, a test that uses the big word collaboration. So it's important to make sure that we follow this definition. I mean, we're teachers. Let's take a look at this picture. I really loved finding this. I found this as I was creating our PD, and I could not agree more with these three. The role of us as teachers. We teach, students learn. That's our hope. That's why we use all of our teaching strategies daily. We work hard to present to them, to have them work together. And then we assess. Well, these three go hand in hand. It's very important that we always go back to our role of teaching. And the assessment part is the one that we definitely want to collaborate. if not the most, close to the most, because as we know, teaching, we also want to collaborate when we're teaching, because again, the expertise of 10 is better together than the expertise of 1. We want to make sure that shows through our students. Our students get that, that they're not just getting it from one teacher, but the fact that, hey, my teacher collaborated with other teachers. I know I'm getting the best education because they're experts, because they're professionals, they're working together, etc. So let's continue. I want to get us through the first half of this session quicker. This will be available as a webinar on my YouTube channel. I'll be giving that information later on today. Let's just keep it going so that we have time at the end to actually create a common assessment for the different integrated math levels that we have here at Hueneme High School. All right, let's start with the benefits. So again, we're at the question, why? Why do we use common assessment? Why do we need them? So first of all, when you use common assessments, all teachers agree on the same student objectives. There is no question as to, oh, in so-and-so's class, we're covering this, but we're focusing mainly on factoring. Whoa, hold on, in so-and-so's class, we're learning this, but we're focusing mainly on this other subject. And so it's very important to have common ground. Now, not only that, having a common assessment gives that opportunity for some ongoing collaboration opportunities. And yes, while it might be hard sometimes, we're all busy with time, etc. Ongoing collaboration can be something as simple as a Google Doc, adding suggestions, reflections on there, just checking in ever so often. I know many of us are always checking Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. Then if we can do that, trust me, we can do Google Docs. Now, not only that, but the expectations are consistent among all students, among all teachers, and this makes it much easier when a student's transferring. So everyone's been through this. You have students who are transferring halfway through the semester. You ask them, or you look at their transfer grade, you look at what they've learned, and you're like, whoa, what am I going to do with this student? We are already past chapter 4, yet they were already in chapter 5, or the worst part, they were only in chapter 3. Well, again, if your expectations are consistent, you're following a pacing guide, common assessment, this shouldn't pose a problem when transfers are occurring. And as we know, at Hueneme High School, we have a lot of that going on every single semester. So not only is it beneficial for students, but for teachers as well. Now, when you have common assessment, teachers agree on what proficiency looks like. So there is no gray areas to, okay, a student kind of knows this. No, either a student knows it or doesn't. You all agree what proficiency looks like. We know, that proficiency will look like this. If a student needs to solve, for example, a quadratic, well, they must be able to follow all these steps. If a student is close to meeting, so say they're average, then a student can get up to this step. But there is agreement. Teachers know exactly what it looks like, and there's no question about it. Now, this also, the fact that you have common assessment, it allows for instructional modifications. Again, going back to the fact that you're meeting periodically, you're discussing, you're analyzing, you're really looking at the data and what it's showing. Are our students meeting the objectives? If not, what can we modify? How can we support students to get where we want to get them, to meet those California state standards? I know a big one for us in the math department right now, just having students not too long ago, about 2-3 weeks ago, right before spring break, they took the CASP, so the SBAC in math, and I can tell you, we can help them much better, and having common assessments, common ground, will help them get there. Now, who creates common assessment? If you guessed us, you are right. So we as teachers, that's one of our roles. We teach so that students learn. We assess to see what they've learned. Have they met the expectations that we set forth in our lessons? So again, let's go back to Johnson's quote. If 5 teachers teaching the same course or grade level are responsible for ensuring all students acquire the same knowledge and skills, it makes sense those teachers would work together to determine the best methods to assess student learning. A team of teachers could divide responsibilities for creating a unit and developing assessments. Teachers working in isolations replicate and duplicate effort. They work hard, but they do not work smart. I have done this. Unfortunately, this is my 3rd year teaching. First year I came in, you're always being switched from workplace to workplace. It takes time for you to get used to your colleagues, but if I were to do it all over again, I'd start from day one. I'd start collaborating. I know lately my next door neighbor and I, we've been collaborating. We really look at units, and it just makes the work so much easier, so much faster, more efficient. I am not spending that much time anymore creating tests. We divide up the work, and then we share it out. So unfortunately, we haven't had the time to all meet at the same time, given life, given coaching. I know many of our math department teachers coach, so I completely understand, but we do make sure that to send emails, and we do get feedback, which makes the modifications of the common assessments a little bit easier. So that's just the tip. If you notice that your department is heavily active in the school life, there's always a way to make time and actually collaborate with each other, whether it's email, texting. I know I find myself texting a lot with another colleague, but we can make the time. We can definitely make sure not to work smart and not work hard. Now, how to create common assessments. I really love this picture. I think this picture sums up the entire process of how to create common assessments. So I would like to explain. So if you look at all these, say these are teachers. There's 7 teachers here, all wearing the same cap. So we're going to say that's the same school level, the same level and same subject. Well, all of them come from different expertise. Some of them might have taught for 20 years now. Some of them 5 years. Some of them might be new. Well, regardless of it, they all have one goal, and they're all walking towards that goal. We want to be the best teacher for our students. We want our students to reach that success level. So all of us have that same target, if we want to call it that way. So common assessments. This is what represents common assessments. Say the main part. Second part, right? Student objectives. Getting students. Third part, getting students to meet those student objectives. And fourth part, analyzing. If they didn't meet it, what can we do about it? It's action. It's not just talking about it. It's action. What can we do? Can we modify the test for next time? Can we retest? I don't like using retesting in my classroom, but maybe retesting can be a way for them. I really like doing this in my Math 9. When students say majority of my students do not pass a test, or majority did not meet a particular strand of objective. What I like doing is I separate.
Students did with a common language using a common assessment.
With their tablet and then reply on there as to a prediction.
Collaborative teams use a variety of protocols depending on their meeting purpose. In the next few minutes, you will see a 3rd grade team using a protocol to develop common assessments by following these steps. First, establish the purpose of testing.
I thought we would start with just confirming what our purpose for testing is. How will we be using these results?
Make sure that the kids have understood what we've been instructing them on, and so they can successfully meet the goals for the SOL.
They do okay with reading a graph, answering questions that go with the graph, but then they don't use this vocabulary in their real world. They don't apply it in their real world. And
so the first step is getting clear on purpose, and then our next step is to get clear on the learning targets. We've typically already unpacked them, but it's to ask ourselves what targets specifically do we want to assess.
After the team agrees how scores will be used and what decisions they inform, step 2 emerges: clear learning targets.
I had sent out yesterday, and hopefully you might have had a chance to look at it, the possible learning targets. These are just the things that are possible that we could assess. What are there any that we need to take off of this list or add to this list? Do you want to assess that extended indicator that was 318A5 at the end?
I would, because that's one of the few concepts they actually understand based on their prior knowledge of games and playing.
Well, it's really important to know the purpose of why you're building the assessment, because otherwise nobody's going to be on the same page. So for example, when we sat down together today, we talked about the fact that our purpose was we want to really assess, can the children graph? Can they read graphs? Can they read other people's graphs and answer questions about graphs? And so our assessment needed to answer those same questions as well. So as a team, we all agreed, these are the standards we need to use. This is where we need to be when we're finished. So what do we need to do to get the kids there? And by creating that assessment together, we all have a very clear picture of what our students need to know. And then our hallway conversations, our lunchtime conversations, when we have more CLTs to talk about planning, correlate right back to where our end is. Because if we don't know where we're headed, we're never going to get there.
We've already graphed our birthdays. What are we graphing now? Abram? The whole 3rd grade.
After creating essential learning targets, step 3 begins: create an assessment plan.
They have to draw the combinations.
And how is that different than 318A2? List all possible outcomes for a given situation.
That sounds the same.
That sounds the same.
Okay.
It's just I guess the examples in the standard don't say combinations, so I never personally think that's a combination, but
I didn't read it that way either. Yeah.
because I want them to know.
We meet and we talk about the standards, and then we go back and we teach the standards, and then we assess them.
And with that, you can build that into morning meetings in your morning message, and you can be constructing graphs.
Dear graphers, slow down. Good morning. Yes. This morning you'll graph the birthdays of 3rd grade students.
Not that they're taking a test every day. It can be a quick question. It can be filling out an exit ticket. Here's a bar graph. Tell me what this is, so I can assess, and then I can support those students who need it, and I can see who understands it, so I don't waste a lot of time.
What'd you get? 3.
Step 4 is about selecting a suitable format for assessment. What will the assessment look like? True or false? Short answer? Always match the assessment to the learning target.
Now we just need to talk about what you want this assessment to look like. So what are you thinking?
Those technology-enhanced questions where they have to pull the graph up to where it needs to go.
I'm thinking that it might be
We want to look
better
at
to assess.
how which standards or SBIs we're assessing, so that we can look at the verbs in there and see if it says construct a graph, then presumably we want kids to actually be making something and have a product. So we need to look at both the SBIs, talk about ideally this is how we want the assessment to look, this is kind of how many items or what we're thinking we want it to look like, and then we make our plan from there based
the
on
B's,
that.
construct a line plot, construct a picture graph, organize data for a bar graph, label the axis on a bar graph.
Once the team has
So
established
just like a lot of
purpose,
these
learning
could be
targets,
handled
a plan and format, it's time for step 5. Assemble the assessment.
Just decide what you want to do, and then we could build it in Smart Notebook, and then they would do it at a computer with the Smart Notebook software up.
Once we've got our plan together and we've decided what we want it to look at, like how many items we want, then we usually break off into teams, and that's what we did kind of at the end of the session today. We'll come back tomorrow and people will have broken off into smaller groups to find items, develop items, create what we want, and then we'll come back together as a whole group, and everybody will put out the items that we think we want to use, and we'll finalize it from there.
One titles.
Avoid coming together and just picking up items and throwing them together.
Can we add another column so we can put the item numbers exactly right?
Once assessment tasks are agreed upon and assigned, timelines are established. Then the entire 3rd grade team will return to their classrooms to assess students' work and collect data. Step 6. Try out the assessment and collect data. By examining information, teachers can identify ways to tailor their instruction to support all learners. Assessments and the collection of data can happen during morning meetings, whole group and small group settings.
in terms of getting to use the assessment again, I really believe that a well-developed assessment is going to serve you. It takes a little time to set up at the beginning, but it's going to serve you. And as long as the standards haven't changed, what we typically do after we've created it and administered it, we come back and look at our data, and sometimes we find we may have an item on there that really didn't work the way that we wanted to. It didn't give us the information we want, so we adjust that item. So in future years, it's usually just a matter of tweaking the assessment because we've invested the time up front with creating it.
So from here, do you want to take some CLT time tomorrow?
A strong collaborative team thrives on professional trust and communication. A meeting centered on assessment has a clear agenda and these steps. 1. Purpose of testing. 2. Clear learning targets. 3. Test plan based on targets. 4. Select item format or match assessment method to learning target. 5. Assemble the assessment. 6. Give the assessment and collect data. And finally, revise as needed. A strong common assessment is tied to system-wide standards, benchmarks, and indicators. When learning targets are known, grade level teachers assess instruction with common purpose.